At Chanakya University, when we began, we asked a very simple question. There are hundreds and thousands of universities in this country. What is the need for another university? Well, we found out that while there are many, many universities, there are certain things that we need to pay attention to anew in India. One is multiple kinds of knowledge traditions that exist don't seem to speak to each other. And that's a bane in Indian higher education. You might be a very good economist, but you might not know the first thing about the historical forces that have shaped economic dynamics in the way that it is. You might be a very good biologist, but you might not know the first thing about how cultural factors affect health and well-being in a very deep way. However, most of the problems that we are encountering today are not merely biological or merely political or merely economic. They are all problems which are in the crossroads, in the interstices of multiple disciplines, which means we need a university which brings all of these persuasions together. That's an important sense that we had. Another issue which we've been hearing about in the last couple of decades is, we all know this for a fact, students graduate out of a university and go through multiple phases of jobs, employment and career persuasions, and even persuasions of passion. So it is not like it was, say, probably 50, 60 years ago, you get a job and then you retire from that job or that industry. Today, you begin as an engineer probably, and then quickly go on to do managerial tasks, move into the higher management, and probably then pursue your own hobby. You might bring technology and history together, and then move on to education, and then probably move on to social service, and then move on to philanthropy. So a typical graduate today, after his or her graduation, is shifting not just jobs, but shifting sectors 3, 4, 5, 7 times in their lifespan. Which means training you for your first job is not a good enough proposition for a university. We need to train you for your second, your third, your fourth, and your 8th and your 10th job. But we really don't know what those second and third and fourth and 10th jobs are. So how do we train you for things we don't even know what you're going to do with? Well, here is an option, and that's the Chanakya option, which is to say, we're not going to train you only for some one specific narrow skill set. We're going to train you in a meta-level skill, which is the ability to be a successful learner across multiple contexts. Now, what is the education that trains you to be a successful meta-learner? That is, a successful learner when newer challenges come, when newer domains emerge. Remember, most of the jobs that you have today may not exist in the next 10 years. Most of the jobs that might exist in the next 10 years, we don't even know what they are. But one thing is certain, that person is going to be successful in this changing environment who has the capacity to be able to learn, to be able to learn new ideas, to be able to assimilate new understanding about things. And what is the nature of education for this kind of a person? We have thought a lot about it, and that is where we thought we need a university which focuses not simply on fact-specific learning, but a certain kind of meta-learning. And then there is a third very important issue. For the last 100 years or 150 years, we have been in a historical cultural context where we can almost assume as if, or we have been going around as if, the last 2000 years of this culture and this history doesn't exist, or we don't need to worry about it. It's as if Our culture, our communities, our knowledge, our practices, our ways of going about the world has begun in the last 150 years. And anything before that is simply a matter of lore and what is relegated to the family, to the private sphere, to the sphere of rituals, religion and domesticity. But there was knowledge here in this culture. There was a lot of debate and discussion. And whether you like it or not, we have been framed by these traditions. We have been framed by the modern tradition on the one hand, coming from the West, from the history of modernization and industrialization, colonialism, what have you. And we have a longer tradition coming from our own familial backgrounds, our larger cultural backgrounds. As Indians, most of us are inheritors of both these traditions. It's not like you get to choose one or the other. You can be forgetful of one or the other inheritance, but you can't choose yourself out of one of these inheritances. What is it for an education to do justice to both of these inheritances? What is it for an education to bring both of these inheritances together to be able to discover and achieve newer horizons of knowledge? Now that's the question we asked at Chanakya. And we said our education has to respond to all of these aspects. So just to quickly repeat, your first job is not your last job. We need an education that responds to that. Challenges of the world today do not come in different disciplinary pockets. You need a certain way of bringing multiple disciplines together. And we are inheritors of at least two, if not more, traditions. We need an education which does justice to this very complex and rich inheritance, which means we need a university which is not like the routine Indian university. We need a university which is built on a slightly different framework, a different philosophy. And at Chanakya, I think we've been striving to achieve that different university.